What is the difference when we interpret this game versus this game? Soccer looks different when you can't see who's playing. These are probably things you know if you've learned about things like implicit bias before. During 2018 World Cup, Zito Madu pointed out the racially coded language commenters use to describe a match between Poland and Senegal, which didn't line up with what he saw on the field. A typical article claimed Poland struggled all game against the pace and physicality of Senegal, which is an absurd line for anyone who watched the game. It felt like an example of widespread tendency to focus on black players' pace and power while praising white players for things like intelligence and work ethic. The world of professional sports and hearing broadcasters every day, and one thing that is for certain, coded language is everywhere. And sports, since the majority of the time coded language tends to come out as like positive stereotypes, that is why we tend to overlook a lot of stereotypes and really sports-related bigotry, right? That's ultimately what that all leads towards. It's freakish how athletic this person may be, right? Versus someone who might be sneaky good, sneaky fast. People have a really difficult time at comparing someone's like literal skills, literal talent to another person's, which is like objectively or at least somewhat based within a reasonable amount of truth. A really interesting version of this is if you look at black quarterbacks in the NFL, a lot of the time they place these ideas of like the athletic quarterback, or a quarterback is a dual threat, right? It is implicit bias. You don't mean to, but because of the things you read and the biases you harbor because of the things that are perpetuated through the environment, through the things you read, through the things you read consistently or constantly from the sources you trust, from all of that stuff, you tend to harbor the same biases as well, right? How much would the same game have looked to viewers who literally couldn't see race? So this is from our dude Devin Pleeler, friend of the stream, Devin. He's over at Toronto FC. So Devin and Sam Gregory did a study, and so what they did was they took a game, or they took clips of a game, and then they turned it into stick figure versions. And so this is with 3D player tracking. And they wanted to know, what is the difference when we interpret this game versus this game? And here's what they found. So when you can't see the race between this game of Poland versus Senegal, which was used in the example, respondents found Poland to be more athletic, whereas if you could see race, Senegal ended up being more athletic. And the reason here is only really described through this like coded language, through this implicit bias, through this truly like implicit bigotry. This is no surprise, right? So who's more physical? 50-50, whereas pace and power, remember, these things that you end up seeing related to black people more than white people. More tactically organized, Poland over here, and that's simply because Poland is a higher ranked team. Why the increase all of a sudden? If we accept the fact that the thing that changes this is race, and the thing that changes this is race, then the conclusion here, it's no different, right? The way that you take in the sport is usually you watching it, and at the same time, someone trying to contextualize why things are important or why things matter. And if the majority, literally 99% of people who watch sports, who ingest sports as entertainment, if they are all watching this, hearing this, and engaging in this information, how is it possible for us to escape this, right? Unless we have truly expert knowledge of the game, we are completely at the will of the people who represent the broadcast, regardless of how fair or how quick or how detailed or animated or how good the catchy phrase lines may be from your favorite commentators. They are still the people who have to represent the game to you in the most objective, most fair way possible. And when things like this happen, even though we are talking about the game and we're trying to contextualize it in terms of the space of the game, when this happens, we don't question it as casuals. Because you're watching something for entertainment and you don't want to think too hard into it. You're not really trying to think too hard about it at all. In fact, you might not even enjoy it to some extent. It might just be on and you're just trying to be a part of a conversation. Do you feel that better analytics and data can help fans unlearn some of these stereotypes? Sadly, no. Because of the cherry-picked nature of data, we would tend to reinforce some of these things, which is the sad thing. I think some of these things become reinforced. So there is no real way to combat it from the data perspective. Now, the nice thing about data is this also counts in terms of data, right? Because this is new data. This isn't data that, we project and use to gamble and use to make our fantasy lineups and whatever. This isn't that kind of data. This is data in terms of your perception, right? This is the kind of data that lives out there that no one does. And so it's possible, in my opinion, the more we have this kind of data, then the better it is to educate. And it doesn't even matter if you do something externally, because implicit bias is out there and it's real, and it makes careers and it also breaks careers. The less we have of it, the closer we get to that concept of meritocracy everyone strives for. And supposedly it's real, but the only way we can make it more real is if we break down the things that are not merit-based.